Hello, hello, hello. Can't wait to get started. Waiting for people to come in. Hello, everybody. I cannot wait to have this conversation. It's a much needed conversation. And I'm looking forward to it. Sending these lives out to the folks. I hope everyone is having a great day. I'm having a great day. Great news, great conversations. Okay. Cool. Hi, Sasha.
Hi.
Hello, hello, hello.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Yeah, it's a wonderful day. Um, so I'm glad that you came on. I've been looking forward to this conversation all week.
Yes, definitely.
So to start off, we can just start by, introducing yourself. Talk about who you are and what you do.
Okay, well, I'm Sasha. Hi, everybody. I'm a writer, a mother of six. I work with so many. I feel like I have on so many hats right now.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm a writer. I work with kids. Gosh, um, I do legal stuff. I do all kinds of things. So, yeah,
Definitely a woman of many hats.
definitely.
Um, Speaking of kids, I know you work with kids. What prompted you to start working with the youth?
Well, I've been working with youth for probably about 17 years now. I actually owned a competitive cheerleading company in Southern California prior to coming here, which was Spirit of SoCal in Synergy Athletics.
Mm-hmm.
And what prompted that is just my love for the sport because I was a cheerleader also, um, from elementary school all the way up through high school and even a little bit of college. Um, and it's just very fulfilling for me to be able to pass on, just knowledge and skills and then just like mentorship. I love the mentorship part of that, you
Right.
know. um I had an advisor when I was in high school. I went to a cheerleading camp my sophomore year, and it was really hard for me because that year I actually did something a little different, which was song leading. And
Mm-hmm.
I could dance like hip hop, but all that lyrical movements and all of that, I wasn't trained to do it. I could do
Right.
it kind of naturally, but looking at other teams that were like really serious with it intimidated me. And I had an advisor. Her name was Claudia Bustillos. And she kind of like literally would get up well before camp time and would work with me one on one. And she really just kind of supported me in a way that I wasn't getting at home.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of motivated me. And she told me, never quit. It motivated me to keep going. And I loved that so much because it stuck with me. And I
Right.
ended up actually working with her, surprisingly, in my adult years, like back in 2011, in a program that she actually owned. Um, Not planned, not ever knowing if I would ever see her again or anything, and literally burst into tears when I seen her. She remembered who I was, and we made a connection. Then, she's still very active in my kids' lives. So it kind
Mm-hmm.
of, you know, it kind of turned into something different. And that was something that I always wanted to give back to youth as well. So that's how it started for me.
Right. Because that mentorship is extremely important for the youth.
Definitely.
Um, Tell me about, I know you work with children who have parents who are incarcerated. Tell me about that.
Well, I'm actually through my nonprofit organization, Mixed Behavior Foundation. We're actually creating a program to help, kids, give them mental health support, and like create camps, and that way they can have some type of support. For me, I was a child of an incarcerated parent the majority of my childhood, even into my adulthood. And there weren't any support programs for that. There weren't anyone that I can lean on that would really understand kind of what I was going through.
Right.
My grandmother, my mom, left me with my grandmother. I hate saying left me because she didn't just drop me off, you know what I mean? But
Right.
she left me in the care of my grandmother, which was obviously a blessing, because I know so many other children who had to go through the foster system and stuff like that. But, she was very strong. So, my grandmother never really let me be weak in those moments,
Mm-hmm.
which, it didn't really help me. It helped me, but it didn't help me. You know what I mean? It helped me as far as me, I guess, learning how to just not let it get me down per se. But it
Mm-hmm.
didn't help me emotionally or mentally because I was still dealing with it,
Right.
and I had just no one to talk to and no one to relate to. So,
Mm-hmm.
we're creating a program where we can hopefully, bring some joy, a sense of joy, to those kids who are experiencing an absence of a parent who's incarcerated. So,
Right. And that's beautiful work because our youth definitely need it, especially those who are experiencing, secondhand experiencing incarceration with, parents or family members. You know, I'm formerly incarcerated, so my daughter is a daughter of an incarcerated parent.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I just know I've seen a lot of those relationships, and it's hard on both ends. But I especially feel for the family because they will never understand, um, like the other side of
Mm-hmm.
incarceration and the things that their loved one will never be able to explain to them about like what they are going through, and just feeling lost in that sense.
Definitely.
um so I'm very thankful for what you are doing with youth, just helping guiding them through that. And it was Mother's Day,
Yeah.
happy belated Mother's Day.
Thank you. Back to you.
So tell me, how was that for you? How is Mother's Day for you now? I know your mother is out of incarceration. So how is Mother's Day for you now?
um, my mother, she's out of incarceration, so I'm able to contact her whenever I want. We literally talk several times a day. So, that's a beautiful thing. Mother's Day for me, because I'm up north and my mother's still down in LA, it's still kind of shaky for me,
Yeah.
because due to her situation still, being, on federal probation, not able to really move how she wants to be able to move freely.
Mm-hmm.
It still does kind of it still feels like an incarceration for her. So it's
Yeah.
like, if I can't get down there, it's really hard for us to physically see each other. But we FaceTime all the time. Um and Mother's Day we just kind of we talked, and I just wanted a peaceful day. My husband cooked for me, my kids, uh three of my daughters are here. One of my daughters is down in LA. She called me. She was actually sick.
Mm-hmm.
She's 18, but they still need mama. So I was able to send her some stuff to help her feel better, and I just really took the day for myself. And my mom, she took the day for herself. So that's what my Mother's Day looked like this year.
That's beautiful. Um, so speaking of which, what does being a mother actually look like for you now?
Crazy. We have my husband and I. We have 6 kids, combined, blended. He had 2 boys previous relationship, which are my sons now. And then I had 3 daughters previous relationship, and then we share a daughter. So we have 6 kids. So we're always busy,
Right.
especially me. He works, and I'm more of at home, handling the at home things and getting the kids back and forth to school. But we have 2 18-year-olds. Our son is in college at, I think it's CCSF, if I'm saying that right. Like I said, our oldest daughter, she's down in LA. She's working. Our middle daughter, she models, and she actually play. Well, she doesn't play, but she's on a stunt team for cheerleading. So she's going to state this week, the state championship. And our 10-year-old is she's an artist actually. She loves drawing, and she's actually really, really good at it. And our little 3-year-old, she's just a bundle of energy. It's like a combination of all the kids, and it's just really busy for us, but it's a beautiful busy. I don't complain. I'm lying. I do complain, but I don't complain as if I don't like it. I enjoy
Right.
it. I enjoy being a mother. I love loving on my kids, all of them. And it brings me joy because I wasn't able to have that in a sense. Like my mom, even though she was incarcerated, she always stayed connected through letters and stuff. But the physical is what I always missed from her. So I kind of sometimes maybe overcompensate a little bit with that, but I love being a mother. So even though it's busy, it's just a beautiful experience for me.
Right. And knowing that you missed out on those times with your mother, what type of things do you try to do as a parent to make sure that you cultivate your relationships with your children in a way that you know that you didn't actually weren't able to actually have?
Be present, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I'll definitely make sure I'm there for them however they need me to show up. Not just only physically, I try to be there emotionally. I'm getting better at trying to understand them individually because they're all different, you know. Um, and just really just being there because the material is going to be there regardless, right? I got to take care of them regardless, but just showing up to every single game. And even though sometimes, especially our middle daughter, she hates when we cheer for her, but you gonna hear me
Right.
there, you know what I'm saying? So just being there, that's what I missed. So that's what I make sure I give all the time.
Right.
So.
That's beautiful. Um, and speaking of which, so what is and was your relationship like with your mother growing up?
Growing up, okay, when I was younger, um, not saying that I don't feel this way about her now, but when I was younger, my mom literally to me was like a movie star. You know what I mean? My mom is a beautiful woman. She's always well put together. Definitely someone that I always looked up to, especially in that way. Always smelled good, hair just seems just literally, anyone who knows her even says this, when she shows up, it's like it's like a movie star type of situation. So, I always admired her, and in admiring her though, it would make me angry once I started getting a little bit older and started kind of realizing um the reasons why I was at my grandmother's and not actually with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
It made me kind of angry at her for it felt like she was just choosing that lifestyle over me, which now me being an adult, I can see and I can understand a little differently. You know what I mean? That's obviously not what it was, but
Right.
when I was younger, um, it was just kind of hard to have a relationship if she wasn't able to be there due to her circumstances, you
Right.
know. But always yearned for it. You know, when she would call, I would be happy to talk to her. If she was able to sneak in and see me, I was happy to see her. Going into my teenage years, she came home, I think, a little bit before I turned 16. And that's when it was a little bit shaky, you know, because in adolescence
Mm-hmm.
stage, you know what I mean? And I'm smelling myself per se, you know what I mean? And it's like, you know, it's turning into the, well, you don't really know me, you know what I mean? So, you know, it's been a roller coaster emotionally, but we're in a really good place. We've never been in a terrible place. We just were in a place of not understanding each other.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Which now, you know, through a lot of the things that we're doing in therapy and stuff, we're able to understand who we are individually. You know what I mean? It's not just like, oh, well, you're my daughter, so this, and that. And it's not like, you know, me hearing stories about her or assuming certain things. Now I'm getting direct answers and getting to know her on a level that I never really knew her on. You know,
Right.
so
Right. That's beautiful. Because I know for me, like, my mom was my superhero. And when I found out she was human, like, how dare you be human? And I'm a kid. Like, how dare you on my time?
yeah, definitely.
How dare you be a human in my time? But, you know, as we grow, we start to understand and learn. And, you know, through trial and error, we start to make mistakes ourselves and be able to see, like, okay, like, I get it. Um, and I think I was just having a conversation with someone about like how it is extremely important to have these conversations about things that happen in our lives with our children, like with our nieces and nephews and stuff like that, because this is their life too. And
Yeah,
regardless of whether or not they're going to follow in our footsteps or listen to us or whatever it is, like it's important to know what happens to the people that is around you, because I feel like that is also a part of what is contributing to our decline in mental health. Everybody feels like they're in this alone, and they're really not. Like they're really not. Once I started to, you know, get more into my life and started to have things happen to me, I know my mom used to share stories with me, so I would see it and be like, oh, that's what she went through. Or even just having a kid, like, oh, she was going through this with this many kids and only got one. Lord Jesus, help her.
yeah,
You know, help
yeah.
her.
You definitely stand a whole different level once you have your own children. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's what started helping. When, you know, when I had my oldest daughter, um, I was only 19 years old. So that's when I started seeing things in sort of a different light. You know, things were still kind of shaky. I still had a lot of unexpressed emotions, you know,
Yeah.
to my parents, period. But kids will definitely have you looking at things at a different perspective for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Speaking of having a child young and just being a teenager, like what were the type of things that you feel like you needed in that time?
I had at that time my grandmother, she was still living and my mom was actually home. So, you know, I was able to actually have my first child with my mom being home, and which was a beautiful experience to be able to share with her. So I don't feel like I was really missing anything emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because I had a lot of support, a lot of family support, although I was young, you know, in the beginning when I first you know, told them that I was pregnant. Obviously, that wasn't a cute experience, you know, as far as them receiving the news. But you know, they got over it because you had some things that, you know, I opportunities that I was no longer able to take because of it. But you know, I don't regret anything, and
Right.
you know, they were very supportive of me, always there. I mean, my mom, when I with my oldest daughter, my mom was there. And I kind of kicked her out the room. You know, mother, she has Syrian, so she didn't understand why I was in the room that I was in and why it wasn't a sterile environment, like a room, you know.
Right.
But I could see the worry in her face. So I just kind of kicked her out. And her her response to that was like, okay, I'll go get the car seat then. So she went and bought a car seat and a big old huge bear that I couldn't even fit in the car, just a whole bunch of stuff. So I wasn't missing anything, and I'm really grateful for that. I wasn't missing anything during that experience.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm glad that you were able to experience that. So, in your healing journey now, like, what does it look like to heal a mother wound?
Um, Emotional. I learned a lot about my mother that I didn't know. That kind of made me feel really bad for her,
Yeah.
and made me look at her in a really different. And then, well, I know I am not getting emotional up on here.
Okay.
Anyway, what what motivated me to want to that my mother though was my oldest daughter. We started having some issues that I didn't understand, and then I started, looking in the mirror. I started seeing that some of her behaviors were um, aligning with the way that I was back then when I was her age.
Mm-hmm.
She told me one day, she said, well, you can't, I think she said something along the lines of, you don't respect your mom, and that hurt. So I was like, God, is that what I'm showing her?
Right.
So it was important at that moment to fix that. Girl, it was, yeah. So, you know, that's what that was. That's how it started. You know what I mean? I don't want my kids to ever feel like I don't respect their grandmother, and I don't want to feel like I'm putting that off because I do respect my mom, you know?
Right.
So,
Yeah. It's okay, girl. Let it out when you gotta let it out. That is definitely a part of healing. And I know it's like the hardest thing to look at in the mirror and actually see
yeah.
your faults, and our children are looking. Like, our children are watching. It is not but what we say, is exactly about what we do. And a part of healing our mother wounds is healing our relationship with our actual mother, like how we handle them, how we communicate, how we express ourselves, all those things attribute to how our interactions, not just with kids, but like with ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
work, because we are our parents essentially, and we definitely are our mother. May not be exactly their struggle, but their DNA runs through our veins, and
Yeah.
that relationship is so pivotal for our future generations to see, like, just a healthy dynamic in the women in the family.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to look like getting along all the time, but
Definitely.
it does have to look like a respect and boundaries.
Yes.
Um, so, what kind of boundaries are you setting for yourself and the people around you, to aid in your healing journey?
Uh-oh. You froze a little bit. I'm sorry. I didn't get all the questions.
Okay. So, what kind of boundaries are you setting for yourself and the people around you to aid in your healing journey?
Man, just gosh, that's a good question. um, I just want them to understand this journey that I'm on, and don't try and detour me. There's a lot of my family's really supportive in what I'm doing. My mom supports, what we're doing 100%, obviously. And part of that is being authentic, even though, you know, I may be, airing out information, just being understanding. It's kind of all I need from at this moment. Don't try and hold us back from telling the story. You know what I mean? Because in telling the story or sharing even with each other, that's a part of it.
Right.
So for me, I think the boundary would be just not not trying to stop us, like, you know what I mean, from doing exactly what we're doing or expressing it in the way that we want to express it. I had my dad, actually, my biological father, recently send me a message on Instagram, and we don't have a relationship.
Right.
But he tried to tap into the situation negatively, where he felt like I shouldn't be sharing what I'm sharing, and I should just be grateful that I know who my parents are, as if that means it. You know what I'm saying? So the boundary with that is, I'm just gonna cut you off from communicating with me,
Mhm.
because I don't need the negative. So if it's negative, we don't even allow it in our space.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And just kind of be open minded with the understanding. And you may not like everything that's said, because sometimes the truth hurts.
Right.
But you got to respect it, because whether it's said or not, it's still our story, right?
Right.
Still my feelings. My mother's feelings are still her feelings. And you can take it, or you can unfollow. You can not tune in. You know what I mean? And that's just how I feel about that.
Right. Yeah, and that's important, especially when putting up boundaries with family, because same thing as us when we were kids, how we felt about, our mother's space. We feel people feel that way about ours as well. Like, we're blood and they're entitled to an opinion, and it's not. It's extremely important to put up boundaries with family. Um, because we live our own lives, right? And people project their own hurts and pains and their own whatever they got going on. And especially if before you did not have boundaries, they feel like this is an open window to infringe on that.
Definitely.
So kudos to you for holding your boundaries and, you know,
Thank you.
sticking to what you got to do. Like, I am all for cutting anyone out, anyone out who is not, you know,
Yeah.
instrumental in your healing journey. And again, that does not always have to look like y'all agreeing, and you don't always have to cut people off for y'all not agreeing. But if it's not conducive to your mental health, number one, I'm all for cutting them people out.
Definitely.
Um, so with that, I am on a journey myself
Yeah.
of reparenting myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so have you implemented any self-care routines that speak to your inner child?
Yes. I have a couple of pictures of myself that I can look at and know exactly where I was mentally when I see those pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So, I look at those pictures and I kind of talk to me at that age. You know what I mean? And I try and pull, those emotions that I bottled up at those ages, and the writing has helped me.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been a writer. I've always loved to journal. That was my go-to. I learned that on Moesha. With dear, you know what I mean? So that's always been, if you can't talk to anybody, I could definitely talk to my journal.
Exactly.
Um that's pretty much my self-care, and just taking space for myself. I often don't get the opportunity. Like I said in the beginning, we have 6 kids. We don't have them all at one time all the time, but consistently there's 4 here. So
Mm-hmm.
or 3 here actually consistently, and busy. I have a toddler, so it's really, really busy.
Yeah.
And the time, so I just make sure that I at least get or a half a day or 2 hours or anything to kind of just go. I'll go to the park or something, or just sit in the front or sit in the back, and I'll just really just, meditate. I'll journal and, just take space for me, because I have to make sure that my mental health is strong, you
Right.
know. And right now, I would say, if I was to weigh it on a scale of 1 to 10, I say it's probably at a really strong 6 or 7, because I'm still healing, right? No one's fully healed. To me, there's no such thing as being fully healed from something. You're always healing. So,
Mhm.
I'm at about a strong 6.5, and that is stemming from, the conversations and stuff that I've had with my mother in doing what I'm doing with Heavy. And but I'm getting there. I'm a lot stronger today than I was 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, and definitely a lot stronger than I was when I was a kid or a teenager, or even in my 20s. So yeah.
Absolutely. Um, so you created Heavy. Speaking of which, tell us about that. What is it? How did it come about? Um, why are you doing it?
Heavy. Okay. Heavy is something that my mom and I wanted to do together. It's a TV series about her life, and the challenges that we had together once obviously once I was born, and all the different things that she's had to overcome um in her journey, you know what I mean? And the decisions and stuff that she's made, a lot of those things you could say make for good TV. So initially we started off that way, and it turned into us having sessions with her therapist,
Yeah.
which is what really kind of opened up the door to, this being something that is very healing for us.
Mm-hmm.
um and once we realized how much closer we were getting just in writing this series, I asked her, I said, Mom, how do you feel about us expanding this journey? You know what I mean? And expanding it to other people, because other people have stories too.
Right.
And that's where Project Heavy came from. Because Project Heavy is actually the program through our nonprofit for the children with incarcerated parents. But in that, we were like, okay, maybe we can do more of a documentary type of theme where other people are sharing their stories, and we can assist them in their healing journey. So it turned from us to how can we share this experience, right? And
Mm-hmm.
help other people. So, the actual Heavy is kind of, I'm not going to say it's on the back burner, but, we have pushed it aside for now.
Mm-hmm.
We're not working on it as intensely as we were before, because we kind of mutually agreed that we have a bigger purpose to serve, you know what I mean, with Project Heavy and doing that. And once we do that, and people, kind of understand, backstory on us, and they kind of see, the emotional and mental trauma that people really go through in incarceration, and what
Mm-hmm.
families go through, and things like that, we hope to it can be used kind of more of an educational tool, if not anything else, you know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, that's what we're doing with that. That's how that came about, you know.
This, and before we get into more information about Project Heavy, I heard you mention therapy several times while we talked. Um, Tell me more about your experiences in therapy, and like how pivotal has that been in not only just your development and with your mother, but in your healing journey as well.
Um man, it's definitely been, therapy is so stigmatized in the, especially the Black community. You know what I mean? I remember being younger and someone mentioning to my grandmother that I should probably be in therapy, and she literally out of her mouth said she is not about to go in there and tell them folks
Yeah.
XYZ. You know what I mean? I don't want them judging her for XYZ. She didn't have the understanding or the knowledge, you know what I mean, that was something that would really be helpful to me. So now that I'm an adult and I'm doing therapy, I actually started my first dabble in therapy was actually in relationship counseling with my husband, and nothing was wrong. He
Yeah.
actually was the one that was like, you know what, I think we should do therapy so that we can stay on the right track. And then when certain
Mm-hmm.
problems arise, we'll know how to handle it and get some support and this, and that, and the other, because we both don't have the best examples of married couples, right?
Right.
Mom and dad, although they are married and they're still married, I've never seen them together a day in my life. So, and then on his side it's a little different too. So, um, in doing that group therapy, it wasn't just relationship counseling. You got individual counseling as well. It was a husband and wife, and the wife counsels me personally, the husband counsels him personally. I learned some things in one of our sessions about how I treat our relationship,
Mm-hmm.
right, or how I treat him in arguments that brought up emotions of my father. You know what I mean? So I started recognizing in relationship counseling that I'm holding him accountable for things that don't even have anything to do with him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so they have us going through this book called Keep Your Love On. And in that book, it actually lets you, it's not a pointing fingers type of thing. You're looking at yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? All those things you apply to yourself. So it's very important. You know what I mean? Counseling is very important. Or therapy is very important. So then, my mom, like I said, as a one of the requirements of her probation is that she's seen a therapist. And I think that that's the most beautiful thing for her, because I can tell you 5 years ago, I approached my mom with us going to therapy, and it was an argument. That is not something she wanted to do. But
Yeah.
in doing that, her growth is just mentally, you know what I mean? Her growth mentally and emotionally, and how she shows up for me emotionally is better. You
Mm-hmm.
um and we've done some sessions together with her therapist, which I think has been really beautiful in our healing. So
Yeah.
I encourage everybody to go to therapy. You don't necessarily have to have a problem, and a lot of times you don't even know you have a problem. You can be walking around with a deep-rooted issue that you've buried when you were
Mm-hmm.
10 years old, and now you're grown and trying to figure out why you react a certain way. It's that emotion that you buried back then. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
it's literally probably one of the best decisions that I ever made.
Right.
So I push that 100%. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm a very deep advocate for mental health. My very first therapist taught me a lot of techniques that helped me heal throughout my life that I still use to this day. But you said a couple of things that I did want to unpack in your story, like the way your grandma reacted and your mother reacted to therapy. I think a lot of people don't know we're closer to slavery than we are not. It hasn't been 400 years, it's only been a couple. And with that being said, the way that they used to treat people that went to therapy was literally to create a stigma and lock them up. So to call them crazy, to lock them away, you were taken away from your family, things like that. So that stigma and that trauma has you know, rushed down to where it's, you know, you don't talk about what's going on outside of our house, to
Yes.
all that stuff. And, you know, it's ingrained in us and we feel like we're doing something wrong when we're going to therapy. But it has definitely evolved. And I know I've had some amazing therapists and I've had some therapists that are just wasn't right for me. And I'll say, just like the doctor, you don't have to stick to one person if it's not right for you. But I do recommend everyone see a therapist. But also, like in relationships, when you're talking about how you hold your husband accountable for things outside of it, those triggers are so important to recognize in relationships, because a lot of times we are holding people accountable for things they don't even know they're doing, and we don't even know why we mad that they're doing it. It's just like, you doing something that's making me upset, stop doing it, and that person don't even know what it is that they are doing, and we hold them accountable. I will say, if you do know what it is and you speak to them and they're still doing it, that's a problem. But a lot of times we have to look at ourselves and look at, you know, how we are reacting to things. Either way it go, whether it's something that somebody is actually doing to us or like a trigger, and get to the root of why we feel that way. So when these triggers and or situations come up again, we're able to recognize, oh, I know where this came from, and be able to maneuver around it accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
And also, relationship counseling, I kudos to y'all, because I'm not in a relationship, but when I do get in one, we're going to need some counseling. I just know it. We're going to do that, because I think it's imperative, especially right now in my healing journey where I'm at, and I'm pretty sure it's the same way for you, wanting to get ahead and being intentional about where you go and your next steps in your journey is extremely important. And that goes for all of your relationships. Like, what are we doing here? Like, how is this relationship benefiting me? How is this relationship benefiting you? What is this relationship doing for us? Like, those things are extremely important. I think couples counseling definitely, I know a lot of married people do that before they get married.
Mm-hmm.
um, I think that is so important that we get into that space where we are intentional about the relationships that we are holding.
Yeah.
And yeah, so going back to Heavy, Project Heavy, right? Um, Tell us more about the stories that you're actually telling.
And Project Heavy
Yes.
is a documentary, so it's going to be other, um, besides just mine and my mother's story. We have, you know, other people who have experienced the same type of issues of incarceration, and how they, you know, were able to handle either being incarcerated, or their loved one being incarcerated, what type of, you know, traumas they've gone through, you know, and what they're doing to overcome it, and give them assistance in healing with that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
My mother's therapist is actually on board with this, which I think is a beautiful thing. You know, she works with previously incarcerated people, so she knows a lot about, you know, the system, and how it works, and how it could be, how it could affect people, and just getting them um back to themselves, you know,
Mm-hmm.
normal life, as much as we can.
Right.
um we're also going to be bringing on a correctional officer who has his own experiences, his own stories, and how it affects mental health, you know, when it comes to, you know, the inmates.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you know, we're just going to be sharing our experiences, you know, and bringing awareness to it actually being an issue mentally,
Right.
you know, because I'm not sure if anyone else has been able to get, you know, mental or emotional support in regards to incarceration, I know what wasn't available to me or my mother, you know. Um, luckily, you know, she did federal term, so I don't know if that's a little bit different from federal to state and what they provide or what they encourage in regards to you, you know, coming home and getting back situated into society. But I know that previous to this time, she didn't have that. I'm
Right.
happy that she does have that now. Um, and we want to see how we can expand that in a different way for people who experience these things, you know. A lot of people, they just look at it like, oh my goodness, you know, these people did bad things, so they deserve whatever it is that they get when it comes to incarceration. And that's not true, you know what I mean? Because people do things for whatever reason, you know.
Right.
And mental health a lot of times plays a really big part in people's decision making when it comes to incarceration. You know, what type of support, what type of family life did they have prior to, you know, making whatever decisions it was that they made. You know what I'm saying? I know for my mother, which we're going to openly share, you know, she had kind of a very traumatizing childhood, you know, in teen years. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Things that I didn't know, you know. And you know, she had to deal with just things that a kid shouldn't have to ever deal with, you know. And my mom, you know, she wasn't always making bad decisions. My mom was a nurse. She went to college. She went to San Jose State, graduated, you know, went on to be a nurse. She lived in one of the most beautiful communities in Thousand Oaks, California, which is a very you know, wealthy type of area, you know. So she had the means, you know what I mean, in the ways to be able to go through life, but she didn't have them mentally.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? She didn't have the mental or emotional support with that. And she made decisions and fell in line with different people who, you know, encouraged other things. And then that's just how that came about. But what we hope to do with this is just shed light on those things. You know,
Mm-hmm.
don't just look at people as being a criminal or they deserve to, you know, suffer in the ways that they suffer, because that's not true. We're still human beings, right? God teaches love, right? We
Right.
to love each other and support each other even when we're wrong, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, and not all stories are bad. I mean, there are some people obviously deserve to be, you know, in prison, but
Yeah.
they need help too, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
People need help too, you know. And the families, although we're on the outside, we're still mentally and emotionally incarcerated because we don't have our family members, you know. So, and
Exactly.
when we are able to go and visit them, how is that experience? That's not a pleasant experience. It's never been a pleasant experience for me to see, oh, all right, wrap it up. You know what I mean? Come on, time's up. You know what I'm saying? You're sitting there as a kid, and then now here comes, you know, the officer making her get out her chair and line up and go back to prison.
Yeah.
That to me is not a good experience for a child at all. You know, so a lot of times, you know, my grandmother wouldn't even take me to visit her because
Yeah.
that, you know, because of what it was doing to me mentally, you know, and emotionally. That's just not, I don't know, it ain't cool. I think that they need to try and figure something else out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As far as their processes, but you know, you don't know unless you know, right? So let's share those stories, and hopefully, you know, I doubt that we're going to be able to make a whole 360 on the judicial system and how they handle things, but we can definitely shine some light where people who may not be going through these things can understand a little better, or even show people who are going through these things, hey, you know, you have support. So
Right.
that's the purpose of this. That's the purpose of Project Heavy and what we're doing and why we're doing that.
Yeah. And I love that. And I'm so excited that you're doing this because, like I said, I'm so pro stories. I have so many stories, so many women's stories in my head from incarceration that I'm going to be writing a book about it, like literally, because I've heard so many stories, and from being in there myself, I just know. the struggles that go with it. Even from, like you were saying, like visiting on y'all side is one thing, but even for us to go to visiting, like that's a traumatic experience in on its own. Like having to strip out, having like, you have to do a whole full process. You can't wear this, you can't do that. Like it's a whole process for you to just see your family, and then you have to watch them leave and go back and still deal with the same things. So that's a whole experience in of itself. And then speaking of, a lot of people are pro prisons, but what they don't understand is those people are getting out. So you put in these people, these human beings that, you know, made their mistakes. A lot of them are, I don't even think people realize it, are children. A lot of people go to prison as children. They definitely lowered the age range for that specifically. I know I didn't go to the prison, but on my way to another prison, we stopped at this prison in California. It's a private prison. It's on a school. Like it's literally on a school. There's a school right here. There's a playground, and you go right there. There's a fence that lines up behind the school, and it's literally on the school. Talking about prison to school pipeline.
Yeah.
Like it's designed to keep you coming back, and when you think about saying that these people deserve the treatment that is happening inside a prison, you also have to think about what you are saying for these people when they come home.
Exactly.
Because they're coming home. They're coming home traumatized. They're coming home without resources. They're coming home without, you know, real reentry plans. They give you a reentry plan this big with good luck.
Yep.
And $200.
Exactly.
And you know, expect to be a prosperous person of society, and then you go back and, like you said, with your mother, like you're still in prison because now you can't see your family, you can't travel, you have restrictions. Say if you do have a victim or not, you have restrictions on that, whether or not you can see your own family. Like there's a whole like jumbled up mess that is the incarceration system that also re-traumatizes families, that also you know, attributes to more crime, that also hurts people in the process. And it's designed that way. It's not like not designed this way, it is designed this way.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
even the culture inside of prison, don't get me started, I'm gonna keep going, but even the culture inside of prison is designed to keep your loved ones there.
Absolutely. And
When
you know, I experienced that, you know, a lot with my for those reasons. I mean, you know, they had a situation of I was younger. Maybe I don't know. I might have been about 12 at the time, but she came home. She did, you know, halfway house situation, and you know, sometimes those and I have a lot of friends that are in law enforcement. I have friends that work in probation. Everybody's not bad, you know what I mean?
right.
But there are those handful or two handfuls that, you know, feel above the law, you know what I'm saying? And it makes it very difficult for a person to, you want them to be this productive citizen and this normal citizen, but you're still not treating them like they're normal citizens, you know what I'm saying? So that's tough, or continuously down talking them. I remember my mother being upset at her I think her probation officer was changed because she moved to a different area, and that person called her a career criminal. And my mom like lost it. She called me and she was emotionally, you could tell that
Yeah.
she was emotionally affected.
Yeah.
And from hearing that, and it's like, you know, I understand certain things that you have to do with your job, but that's not one of those things. So
Yeah.
we're going to talk about a lot in this documentary that hopefully just raise awareness and help people understand, you know what I mean, that it's not just black and white. It's not just, oh, you commit a crime, you go to jail, and then your family, they just are without you, and that's it. And you come home, and then everything's hunky-dory, because that's not the way that it works.
Right. Right. And we definitely need better reentry systems.
That
Um, so before we close out, I really want to know, like, what do you want the people to get out of Project Heavy?
I want them to get, want them to receive these stories. You know what I mean? I want them to receive it and understand. I want them to gain knowledge. You know what I mean? If you haven't been in this situation on either side, either being a family member or a person who's been incarcerated, you really don't know. So how are you allowing people who've never even been through these types of things to even treat us? You know what I'm saying? To even work with us, because you're already coming in negative. So I'm hoping to shed light in an area that is often overshadowed by more so just glorifying or whatever the crimes, and just kind of being more understanding that we are all humans,
Yeah.
right? And that we, sometimes make mistakes, and understand that in making any decision that there's a consequence, right? But you don't have to treat people like they're bad people, or like they're less than you, just because you didn't make I always say this, I tell my teenagers this all the time: everybody is a bad decision away from prison. One bad decision. I've seen, I have a friend of mine who's going to be a part of Project Heavy. She's going to share her story in regards to her brother. you know um he made the decision to go with some friends. Those friends committed a crime, and because he didn't tell, he ended up being a conspirator on the case. That
Yeah.
was a bad decision. He didn't go in and do it himself, right? So now he's in there 20 years to life on a bad decision, just for coming along on a car ride.
Mm-hmm.
you know so just awareness is all that we're asking for, and a
Yeah.
little bit of understanding from a different lens and a different perspective, other than the one that you conjure up in your mind, because you've never experienced such a thing. And oh my God, now we're looking down at these people, because I'm telling you, the shame that I felt as a kid to even be able to share that my mother, a lot of people had fathers in prison, but my mother in prison, while you are able to go home to your mother every day, it was really a traumatic and shameful experience for me. This is my first time ever talking about this publicly. I have people who I've gone to school with from elementary school that never knew what was going on with me. You know what I mean? I had some people, when I shared that we were actually doing this, I had them message me like, oh my goodness, I was going through the same thing. And I'm looking at it like, well, dang, if we would have talked about it, maybe we could have been supporting each other.
Right.
So just awareness, really, you know what I mean? And hopefully we can get it in, you know, uh, maybe this is something that they can show in the prisons, because there's some
Yeah.
people who are in the prisons that get institutionalized and don't understand what this is doing to their families. So we just wanted to be a helpful guide, you know what I mean? Just information, knowledge is all we want you to gain in just a different perspective. That's it.
Right. That's beautiful. And hopefully also reaches our young women, because I know by design there are going to be more and more young women in prison. The population is already rising,
Yeah,
and it's a horrible thing. They're targeting our young women without any guidance, without any family, without um, you know, people to lean on. I've seen it firsthand. So hopefully, Project Heavy can speak to them as well.
definitely.
Um, so I also wanted to know, like, what do you want to get out of Project Heavy?
I told my mom when we first started writing our original Heavy, I said, Mom, this is the last time we're going to talk about these things. You know what I mean? We just want to heal from it, you know. Um, I feel like a lot of my life I've gone through with my cup half empty. I
Mm-hmm.
feel full. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? And I think in healing this part, you know, my inner child, my inner teenager, you know, my inner younger twin,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Because I've been experiencing this a lot. Like, you know, like I shared, you know, my mom is still dealing with this. I'm 38 years old, you know what I'm saying? And I just want to heal. And if I'm whole, right, then whatever holes are in my children
Mm-hmm.
filled as well. My two oldest daughters have experienced this a lot more than, you know, my 10-year-old, obviously, or my 3-year-old. So hopefully this answers questions for them that they may have and may be afraid to ask, or whatever, or get a different understanding of my mother. You know, definitely gain. They don't disrespect my mom, they respect my mom 100%, but
Right.
this gives them an even greater respect for her, and
Mm-hmm.
they can understand me, you know, a lot better. So really, this is just honestly for myself, just healing. I want to fill my cup up, you know.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
fill my cup up and be good.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that, especially because I feel like for me personally, on this journey that I feel in my body, like you said, a fullness. I feel like I did break a generational curse, and
Mm,
I know with the work that you're doing, that that is what you're doing as well.
yeah.
Um, and it will show in your kids. It will show in your relationships, and I'm very, very excited to see that for you. I'm very excited for your family, and like for you to leave us off with some words. You know.
Well, you know, I just want everyone to just be okay with being you. You know what I'm saying? Whoever that is, whoever you are, be okay with being you, you know. Like I said earlier, definitely encourage therapy. You know, you don't have to be going through anything to be in therapy, you know what I'm saying? But it definitely helped. Like I shared earlier, it helped in my relationship, you know, with my husband. It helped it in my relationship with my mother, and it's even starting to help heal the relationship, you know, the relationship with myself. You know,
Mhm.
because everybody, you can't forget about yourself. Don't forget about yourself. You have a relationship and responsibility to yourself first, right, before you can pour from your cup, you know what I'm saying? And mine right now is half empty, so you know, I don't have a lot to pour, but you know, just take care of you, whatever that looks like, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Before you can show up for anybody else, you have to show up for you, heal you, and then you can be the best version of you when you walk out that door every day. Because when you look in the mirror, right, you're accountable for that reflection that's looking back at you. You know what I'm saying? You're accountable for, if you have kids, those kids and how they look at you, how they view you, and understand and help them understand, which is something that I had to recently understand over these last couple of years, is that I cannot expect something out of my children that I'm not even showing up as myself. I'm not perfect. So because
Right.
I'm not perfect, I can't expect, you know, perfection. You know,
Yeah.
they're going to make mistakes, you know what I'm saying? And you know, I just got to be there for them, and if they do, you know what I mean? I want to be able to catch them. I want them to be able to talk to me. So just, you know, work on you. That's what I'll encourage everybody to do, because you are first, period.
Right. Thank you, Sasha. This was great. This My cup is full today. I don't know
Yeah,
about you guys, but my cup is definitely full, and I am so grateful and thank you for sharing with us, for being vulnerable with us, for sharing space, and have a great and wonderful week. I'm looking forward to Project Heavy.
Thank you for having me.
More, of course.
Okay. All right. You have a good day. Bye, everybody.
Thank you all for coming, for showing up. This is a pocket of sunshine. This is my business. This is for us, for women. I've been trying to figure out how I wanted to show up in this space on this page for my business. And I couldn't think of any other better way than to actually tell stories, because I am here to help, and I want to help other people help themselves facilitate their healing journey. Not only just sell products, like I'm here for the healing. So I will be doing this more. I'm very grateful for Sasha for being the first one to come and speak with me. Looking forward to doing this more and seeing everybody on their healing journey. So until next time, get evolved. Love you all and have a great week.